we couldn't do an interview with you without talking about your height. How tall are you?
I'm 3'6".
And what is the condition that you have?
I have spondyloepiphyseal dysplasia congenita, shortened to SED. The ends of the bones are not formed correctly, and as a result of that, I'm short.
It's a form of dwarfism.
Absolutely,
which is the all-encompassing phrase for all little people, which I think is the way all people who are little like to be described now.
Yeah.
How do you feel about your height? Has it ever really bothered you?
Well, it's who I am. My height has dictated who, as a person, I have become. It's all in here, you see. You're as tall as you feel, you know, and...
Many people, I'm sure, don't quite know the right way to talk about this or to deal with it or to talk to you about this.
But people do tend to try and avoid the subject. You know, we're also worried in this sort of age of political correctness of not saying the wrong thing, and I think what that's doing, that's stifling conversation and communication. For me, I want people to come out and say it, you know. And I do notice people get a form of Tourette's almost when they talk to me, because they start using the word short, the word small, little, dwarf, in normal conversation without meaning to, because they try not to say it. And the more they try not to, the more they say it. I had a guy come round to measure up for the patio, and I said, oh, I want a little wall around the edge. And he said, oh, you mean a dwarf? You mean just a few bricks high? I said, yeah, I want one of them, because it is called a dwarf wall, but he was trying to avoid saying it.
What are the taboo phrases? I think midget is now...
is very unacceptable.
That is deemed offensive.
Absolutely.
Little people is a good phrase.
Little people is one that I personally like. I know that doesn't suit everybody. A person with dwarfism, restricted growth is another phrase that's used.
What are the other practical issues that you most encounter? I mean, for example, when you go to a supermarket, I just imagine there are shelves, and some of them you can't reach. What would you do in that situation?
Well, for many years, my diet consisted of only things on the lower three shelves. It's called the shelf diet. You have to be kind of very resourceful as a little person.
What do you do with a big trolley if the stuff goes down the bottom and you can't
That's a nightmare.
Right.
Those deep trolleys, it's in there for good. When I get to the checkout, I unload half the stuff, and then I'm like, well, I can't get the rest out. And then you know, there's that flap at the end that allows them to kind of go together. You could flap that up and reach in. It's like crawling into a giant mouse trap, though. If that door comes down, you're in the trolley for good.
I've heard that there are people from some parts of the world who literally just want to touch you.
Yes, in some cultures, the little people are lucky.
Ireland and Japan being two.
Yes, in Japan, I can't figure that one out, but when I was there, there was a lot of touching going on. A lot of touching. And recently I got into a lift, and I'd walked past somebody, I thought, she's having a look, she wants to have a touch. And she got in the lift with me, oh, now I'm trapped. And she got a fair old share of luck that day. She had more than a helping. She probably won the lottery after that.
Would you find it a constant frustration and irritation, or is it just something you have always had to deal with and that's what it is?
You know what, I don't think I've ever been frustrated about being short, you know. It's something you deal with, and I actually get great amusement from it most of the time, because I kind of see it for what it is, you know. It's like, oh, well, it doesn't work out. You know, when automatic doors don't sense me and I have to do a little jig outside. And I watch the people inside not knowing where to look. They're like, oh, my... do we go help him? I don't know what to do. And so those occasions, I know it happens, and I think it's quite fun.
When you were born, your parents didn't know that you were going to emerge with this condition. It must have been an incredibly harrowing time for your parents.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how they would have coped, you know, just to have that uncertainty about your child, you know, is he going to survive? You know, what is this illness? What does this mean for his future? But they stood strong, and again, that's the reason I am who I am today, because they filled my world with such positivity and such hope and such optimism, I suppose.
Your mother told us that being short of stature had made you a better person. Do you agree with that?
I totally agree with that, yeah. My physicality has dictated who I am and how I see the world. And I don't just mean from, you know, a lower perspective. I mean how I use empathy and how I see other people.
Kids can be at school when they're very young. They can be either very kind or very cruel. What was your experience?
I had a great school life. You know, my overriding memory of school is a very positive one. I had good friends, good teachers that didn't treat me any differently. You know, I was always chosen last when they're choosing teams. You know the feeling, I'm sure. And then, you know, having to do something like the long jump. You know, still having to get involved. I couldn't even get to the sandpit. You know, having to do the high jump. Again, couldn't even get on the mat. You know, it was like...
Football? You only
football, a nightmare. People would think I was the ball. I did score once, though. The ball hit me. I was standing there minding my own business thinking I'm never going to see any action in this game. The ball hit me, bounced off and went in the goal.
I hope you pretended it was deliberate.
I did. I was like, yes! And I was celebrated as man of the match. We won.